How's your puppy? Hello everyone. Welcome to another video entry to My Philippine Diary. Today we're going to discuss cultural knowledge, the things that a country or a culture, a large group of people know that you as a foreigner don't naturally know. An example of this is my 8-year-old Philippine daughter says, black ants don't bite. I'm afraid of all ants, and I think they all bite. But it turns out to be some very useful information. She has had no special SEER training, survival training, camping. I've done no camping or special training myself, and so I don't know this. But apparently she knows this. She knows which insects bite. She knows which plants are edible. She knows bad plants. I don't know where she got this from. I don't think it was school because I help her with all of her schoolwork. I go through her school books, I look at the pictures, I understand the subject matter, and I haven't seen much of this. So apparently she's getting this knowledge from those around her in the world when she's not at school. And so that leads to, how's your puppy? An ex-girlfriend of mine, I met her in about 1989 or so, redhead, Latina, Mexican. At that point in my life, I was single. I was a confirmed bachelor. I was dating and enjoyed dating, and I had no desire whatsoever to get married or be tied down. So I was dating tall girls I go through a stage where I date tall girls, and a stage where I date short girls, a stage where I date heavier girls, a stage where I date smaller girls, a stage where I date girls with big boobies, a stage where I date girls with little boobies. And I happened to be in my redhead stage when I met this young lady. I was also impressed, or I had never seen a redheaded Mexican girl with green eyes before. I was very naive and I didn't understand world history. I certainly didn't understand the history of Mexico. And so this clashed with everything I knew about Mexicans. I thought they were all olive-skinned people with black hair. But we all know that's not the true truth. We know that because of colonization, people actually look many ways in a country like Mexico. Some of them are Asian looking, some of them are white looking, some of them are dark looking, but I just didn't know any better at that time. Anyway, she says, my mom has a house in the U.S. and she has a house in Tijuana, Mexico. We should go to Mexico and visit her in their house. And I said, okay. But before we did that, we went to visit her in her home in California, Los Angeles. I didn't know any Spanish. Whenever you learn the language, the first few words that you learn are the bad words, the curse words. Her mother took one look at me and hated me. She hated my guts. Every bad word that I knew in Spanish, I heard, and they were all being used in reference to me. This lady didn't like me. Apparently, my girlfriend had been on a string of dating very undesirable men that were not good for her, not good to her. And so her mom just assumed that I was another one of those in a long string of bad decisions. Anyway, that long and painful date ended, and we went home. And a couple of weeks later, sure enough, my girlfriend said, let's go down and see my brother in Tijuana. So we drove from Los Angeles down through San Diego, across the border, and crossed over into Tijuana, Mexico. Took about 3 hours. That's great. You can go from Los Angeles to Mexico in 3 hours and visit a foreign country and be back the same day if you want. Anyway, we went. We ended up going to a beach. Took towels and stuff like that, bought a bucket of beers for next to nothing. Sat around, drank those beers, talked, had music, laughed. Some fishermen came in off the ocean. We bought their fish, paid them to cook them for us. It was great. It was a great day. One of the best days of my life. And I really, really enjoyed that. And then we went by and we visited her mom, and her mom was less hostile towards me, although she did love me. I could see that in her eyes. And then we went home. I enjoyed that so much that a couple of weeks later, when my girlfriend said, let's go down to Tijuana again, I agreed. And we went down and we visited some more friends and another brother, and we had another great time. And we did this again and again. Over the course of maybe a year, we went down 15 or 20 times. I really enjoyed myself doing that. About this time, the relationship between me and this girl it was coming to an end. You know how you can tell there's lots of fighting, lots of negative conversations. You can just see the writing on the wall. And so we were having those last couple of conversations right before the relationship ended. And I finally said, I think I'm going to move to Tijuana. And she said, well, I'm not moving to Tijuana. And I said, I wasn't talking about you. I was talking about me. I said, I'm going to move to Tijuana. And she was freaked out because she couldn't figure out how I would exist down there because I don't even speak Spanish. I couldn't get around. But fortunately for me, during that 1 year time, more or less, that we'd been going back and forth, her mother had come to like me. She'd come to love me. She'd come to be my number one fan. Whenever we fought, her mother was on her side. She noticed that I took very good care of her daughter, that I treated her daughter respectfully, that I was a very, very hard worker. That's what impressed her, that I spent as much time possible working and I did okay economically. So she was very, very impressed with my work ethic. And so her mother became my number one fan. And so I was talking to her mother and I said, I'd like to move down to Tijuana and get an apartment and maybe learn some Spanish, et cetera, see what kind of economic opportunities are here for me, and just experience living in another country. She said, that's great. You should come and live with me, and I will help you find an apartment and get you set up. And that's what I did. I lived with my ex-girlfriend's mother for a couple weeks, and she got me set up. She found me a beautiful condominium. It was brand new. In fact, when I went to go look at the condominium, it was finished, except there was no toilet and sink. And they said, we'll have this toilet and sink in here in two or 3 days. If you like, you can leave deposit, and we will guarantee you this exact apartment, condo. And I said, okay, I believe the rent was $135 for a 2-bedroom brand new condo. So I said, okay, and I left that deposit, I left a month's deposit. And sure enough, in 2 weeks when I returned, the toilet was all there, it was all ready to go, the house was all wired, it was good to go. So I paid the rest of the money, I got my key, I moved in. Holy cow, I'm living in Mexico. I got a place in Mexico. It was great. One of my requirements for a place to live was I wanted to live in a place that didn't have any tourists there. I wanted to be immersed amongst the Mexicans so that I would be forced to learn Spanish. Previously in college, I had been a English as a second language ESL teacher's assistant, and I learned several techniques for teaching languages. One of which, the most effective of which, was immersion. Putting yourself in an area where everyone around you speaks the language that you want to speak, and hopefully none of them speak your language. That is the most effective way to learn a language. And so that's what I did. There were no Americans, actually maybe there were 2 Americans in a condominium complex that had 300 condominiums. So there were virtually no Americans. There was one on my street. And so all I had to deal with were my neighbors who, although they wanted to speak English, they tried. It was horrible. They, like most foreigners, English is a desired language, and they tried their best, and they learned a little bit in school, but they by far were not conversational. And so they tried what little they could, but I was going at it like a banshee out of heck, trying to learn Spanish. So when it came time for me to turn on my electricity, I got out my English-Spanish dictionary and I learned the words necessary to have electricity turn on. I built a conversation in my head. I learned words like turn on, turn off, deposit how much. I learned the days of the week, the months of the year. I learned the numbers so that when they said it'll be a deposit for 300 pesos, I would know what they were saying. And that's how I really learned Spanish. I would take a conversation that I was going to be required to have, like going to the electric company and learn all the words associated. Then I did the same for going to the water company. Then I did the same for going to the phone company. And then I started doing conversations for just talking to my neighbors. The people on this side of me were very good people. They were just your regular everyday Mexicans. They come from Guadalajara, a big giant city down in Mexico, up there to Tijuana, which was a very successful, economically strong city. So people were coming there because the jobs was there, the money was there. He came there and he opened a business. He was actually an engineer, but ended up opening a business that dealt with tourists, selling them tourist stuff, art and all that kind of stuff like that. So what he had managed to learn was numbers, because basically he didn't have to say anything to the Americans except for how much, picture, $50, $60. All he had to do was learn the numbers. That's what he learned. And so he knew numbers, but he wasn't capable of having a conversation with me. He had a son, maybe two sons, 1 5, 1 3, and his wife. Now, I spoke to his wife on a regular basis. She spoke even less English, but every day when I came out, I would say hi, and she would say hello back, and we would try words, and she would fortunately correct my errors and teach me the appropriate things to say, and so that really helped my Spanish. Time's going on, things are going great, and I bought a puppy because I'm not home till I have a dog. I just love dogs. Anyway, I bought this puppy and I put him in my backyard. My backyard had an 8-foot concrete fence around it. All the backyards had 8 feet concrete fences around them. These condos were single floor, so there was no one on the second floor looking down into your condo. You had privacy. I threw my chair out there, had my dog. I could barbecue out there. It was a great area for myself. If I didn't want to be bothered, I went back there. Every day I'd come home, play with my dog, clean up his mess, etc., etc. So after about 2 months, I was walking out of the house. I was going somewhere. Don't remember where I was going, but my neighbor says, "Hi, how are you?" I says, "Hi, how are you?" She goes, "How's your dog? How's your puppy?" And I said, "He's fine." And I said something else, and then she comes right back to, "How's your puppy?" And then I realized there was a point behind that question. I go, "He's fine. Why?" And she goes, "Well, I think he's sick." And I go, "Well, what makes you think you're sick?" I'm thinking, you can't see in my backyard. I got that 8 fence. Nobody can tell what's going on back there. She goes, "Well, I heard him crying all night. Go get your puppy." And then I went and got my puppy. She looked at him, she bent his ears forward, and that's when I saw a rash, and I saw some rash on his head and back of his neck and stuff like that. And she pointed to it and she said, "Ronya, rash." And I said, "Oh, well, I've got to go right now, but I'll take him to the vet when I get back." And she goes, "Vet? No, you don't take him to the vet." And I said, "Why not?" I said, "What can I do?" She says, "Go down the street where they sell motor oil for the cars, where they change the motor oil for the cars, and get some used motor oil. Bring that back, rub that all over your dog, and let him sit there for about 15 or 20 minutes. Get some Tide laundry detergent and wash that off." I was amazed because I even asked her, I said, "Just laundry detergent?" She said, "No, get Tide." She was very specific about Tide, and I was just amazed at that. And she said, "And wash that off, and then do it again. Put the used motor oil on him, let it sit 20 minutes, and wash that off. You can do it one more time if you want." And I looked at her in such a strange way. The word slipped out of my mouth. "Get the out of here." I said it, she heard it, but she didn't understand it. It wasn't an insult, it's just an "I'm shocked" expression. But fortunately, she didn't understand that. And so the conversation went on. Anyway, we're standing outside in front of our houses, and across the street is, we'll call her Maria. Maria is the neighborhood vixen. She's a mom. single mom, lives alone, has been known to have been a kept woman. Men paid for her to live and stuff like that. She is the point of all gossip in the neighborhood. She comes over to visit me a lot because we're friends, and of course that's even more gossip. But anyway, I know her. We say hello a lot, and we've had a lot of conversations, so I know her. Anyway, this neighbor invites Maria over, and she says, "Come here." And Maria comes here, and she takes the dog from me, and she shows Maria the back of the dog's ears and the head and the neck. And Maria says, "Ronya," and she says, "Well, what can he do about it?" She said he should get some used motor oil, rub it all over his body, wait about 30 minutes, get some Tide laundry detergent, and use that and wash that off the dog. And he should do that again, wait 20 minutes, and get the Tide and wash it off, and maybe do that again and get some Tide and wash it off. That same crazy look is on my face. I didn't realize that I made this look, but apparently I make this look because people have told me you make a crazy look sometimes. About this time, walking down the street is a guy who is selling carpet. I know he's selling carpet because he's got swatches of carpet under his arm. And so they flag him down, and he comes over, and he asked if I want to buy carpet. And I said no. And they said, "Oh, yeah, by the way, look at this." And the guy looks at the dog's rash, and he goes, "Rania." And they say, "What can he do?" And he says, "Use motor oil, Tide." And I got that crazy look on my face again. And I said, "Okay." And so I take the dog and I put him in the backyard again, and I go about doing my business. I go wherever it is that I'm going. I've got this. What the heck is going on? Am I in the Twilight Zone or what? Anyway, I did what I had to do, and I came back, and on my way home, I stopped by the place where I get the motor oil in my car changed a lot, and I said, "Can I get some used motor oil?" And the guy looks at me, "Is your dog sick?" And once again, the expression's on top of my face. And I go, "Yeah." He goes in the back, he gets a 1 gallon milk jug, empty, and he puts used motor oil in there. And I take that home and I slather the dog in the used motor oil, wait 20 minutes, wash him off with the Tide, get the used motor oil, wash him off with the Tide. I do that, rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat. I do that like 3 times. And I dry him off. And in about 3 or 4 days, I start to see the difference. Heck, in 1 to 2 weeks, the issue is resolved. He's totally cured. That's what we call cultural knowledge, where a whole group knows something and you're not privy to that because you're not part of that group. I went to Mexico thinking, yeah, I'm the big smart American. I got a college degree. I know this. I'm so accomplished. I'm not going to have any problem here at all. They're not going to teach me. I'm just going to have such a good time. I'm going to be so good at living here. People are going to be amazed. But as foreigners, we often have an attitude like that, similar to that, when we must realize that successful integration into a society depends on us picking up some of this cultural knowledge, learning as much of this as we can. The difficult part is we have to distinguish between the cultural knowledge and superstition. But it is important that we gather some of this cultural knowledge if we're going to be part of that culture, that society. Anyway, that's another entry into my Philippine Diary. Thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, and if you enjoy the videos or learn something from the video, please share the videos with a friend. Thank you.